right there? Yeah. I thought that was you right there. Oh, no, it's, okay. So, that's our young program. You guys, we're going to start with something a little bit sensitive and sad, and then I'll pick it up, promise, okay? So if you guys look at the flyer for the beach tournament, this is the second year that it's had the name Chris Little on it. Okay, that was my brother. He passed away from a drug overdose. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because when he was in rooms like this, and when he was involved in things like this, everything was going together for him, and things were building. When he was around the people that supported his good ideas, things were going up for him. Every time he tried to find a shortcut to a successful life or a happy life, things went downhill. And that is true of so many people, okay? There's no shortcut to success. There's no shortcut to happiness. And people think that happiness is something that they deserve right away. And everyone has the option to be happy. But it does take work. You have to want it, and you have to be willing to do the things that long-term create happiness. Okay? Our human nature is to do the thing that causes the least amount of pain, and will follow the path of least resistance. Okay? That is a flaw in human nature, because it will act in the short term, and you will look for short-term happiness. And there are so many people, businesses, social media people, I guess I'm calling myself out right there now. I'm taking on Mr. Beast. So social media people, businesses, politicians, anyone who's on a screen talking to you is trying to take advantage of that thing. And they're telling you a lie. They're telling you a lie that you need their product, you need their policy, you need whatever they're trying to sell you in order to be happy or successful. They're telling you the lie that it's not something that's within you. Every single one of you who has found a way to get to wrestling camp in the middle of summer has inside of them what they need to be successful and happy. Okay? So it takes work. What I'm talking about, it takes work. It takes aiming yourself at something that can provide for your basic needs so that you can excel beyond that. Okay? So the reason why all of us coaches, are involved in combat sports, wrestling, or jiu-jitsu, or any of these areas, is because it gives you a goal, a tournament, where you have to be on weight, where you have to have a certain amount of conditioning, where you have to have a certain amount of skill. And then it teaches you how to devote all your resources into achieving that goal and to being how you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be it, and as ready as possible. So what it teaches you is how to do that for everything. All right? And the actual happiness and success in life comes from knowing you did your best to do your best, and being around other people who are doing their best to be their best. It's okay if you fall short, okay? But if you know that you did your best to do your best, and that you worked very, very hard for something, I promise you that is when you can lay down on your pillow and feel successful, feel proud of the person that you were that day. And every single day that you have that mindset, you will come home every single day being satisfied with the person you were that day, and it just builds, and it's a habit just like any other habit. Okay? So then, the next part, you have within you what you need, but you also have something really awesome. Wrestling family, people around you that you can rely on to help push you to that spot. Okay? The people that you're around are very, very important to your success in two reasons. One, if you're around people that you respect, you'll care what they think, and you'll want them to think that you're on the right path, and you will work harder to be on the right path. And two, if you fall backwards, they're there to help you, okay? I didn't bring it with me, but a few years ago, I broke my human foot and my prosthetic leg, and I couldn't get insurance to cover a new one. I had a lot of problems trying to get a new leg, and I was in complete down and out dumps. I was completely sad. I had dark thoughts that my life was now going to be a complete relegation to laying down, no socializing, no entertainment, no working for other people, just me being useless. And after a couple months of not being able to coach and not being able to work, the people that I had been working with and coaching before noticed my absence, okay? And they raised $25,000 to give me a brand new prosthetic leg, okay? And what I realized at that moment is that it takes a lot of courage to ask for help, okay? And it takes a lot of courage to live a life that's worth people picking you up when you're down. But wrestling family and the people that you're around, one, if you were to go missing, if something were to happen to you, we would deeply, deeply miss you. All of us coaches here, just from this week, would be devastated if something happened to any of you. And if any of you needed help, we would all be very motivated to lift you up. So what you have to be is brave enough to ask for help. You got to be living a life where people around you will know that if they help you, you'll make the most of it. Okay? And that is not as hard as it sounds. It just means setting goals and having integrity, being willing to do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. And when you mess up, taking accountability for it, trying to fix it. That's all you have to do, and more people than you imagine will be there to help you. Okay? And then the next part of it is, then you will be able to get yourself into a position where you want to pay that forward, or where you want to be a part of that type of situation. And anything that happens to your teammates or your family or anyone, you'll be the person who steps up. And it's really a great feeling to have the ability to help your wrestling family, to help the family that you live with, to help your friends, to help people that are in your community and in need. So it is not weakness to ask for help, and it takes a little bit of courage to ask for help, but you should do it, okay? And especially if you get dark feelings and dark thoughts, and no one is immune to it. Even me, I had that, okay? Then the next part. You have no idea that the struggles you have are very similar to a lot of other people, and you have no idea that every single person has a reason they could use to not get to where they want to go, okay? And who likes movies? Anybody like movies? Who likes video games? Okay, anybody like games? Who likes music? Who likes art? Books, comics, any of that stuff. If you raise your hand for any of that, do they make the movie about Kevin who had a decent job, good credit, lived in an apartment, and everything was completely average? Would you watch that movie? No. Care about that movie? No. What you watch is movies about someone who goes against all the odds. Avengers or any of those things. It wasn't like they were favored to go in and stomp those aliens out or whatever. There was a bunch of odds, there was a bunch of reasons they could have used to not succeed, and they did. Okay? What we want is to be able to tell that type of story about you. Every time I have had a goal ahead of me that was seemingly insurmountable, and I achieved it despite having my leg missing, it motivated people on a reach farther than I could have even imagined, okay? And then when I realized I was talking to people that afterwards they'll tell me something like, okay, but I don't have one leg, so how can I motivate someone? I started piecing that together. Everyone, every single one of us has a reason we could use to keep us out of something. Being afraid is the number one, okay? So you could all have a reason, and you all have one that you can tell. But if you push towards what you want, like you're doing this week in camp, like you do during the wrestling season, if you push towards what you want, you have no idea how many people you're lifting up with your courage, okay? So when I say fear is the number one, it's because I know every single person has fear, all right? And you talk about bravery. Most people think, especially kids your age, think that bravery is being not afraid, right? Not true. Bravery is being afraid and having something that seems impossible and putting everything you have into going for it. To still go out there when you're afraid. To still push for it when you're afraid. Okay? So what I want you guys to do, this is the last little part, is I want you to pick goals that scare you because they're so big. I want you to pick the obstacle that's in front of you that scares you the most and go attack it. Go solve that puzzle. Because the only time that you will be the most happy, the time that you will feel the best, is when you put everything towards a goal like that and you overcome all of those odds. And it's all these small moments where you tell that fear to be quiet. All the small times where you're in the gym. You won't remember the practice that you don't feel good, but you still come in there. You won't remember most of the average practices that you have, but what you will remember is the moment that it leads to. The big win in a big match, the big time getting the job that you want, the whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, getting the degree that you want, all of those things, that's when you'll be truly happy. So I know you're afraid of a lot of things. Everyone is. Every single person is. Okay? But I want you to take from me, because I learned it big time, is pick something that scares you. Okay? Pick something that scares you a lot and show bravery and attack it. And do not let the excuse that you could use be the thing that holds you back. Let that be the thing that makes your story good. Everybody got it? Okay? So, what I want to do now is, I'm always fascinated with the questions. So I want to do more question and answer stuff. You ask me something, and I will give you a beautiful, fantastic answer. Okay? Got it? Who's got a question? Who's ready? What do you got?
Does it have to be a real life thing?
It can be anything. What? What? What is it?
Could it be like fear of falling?
It can be a fear of falling, yeah. So for something like fear of falling, it's a little bit different. But what I would do if I was you is I would tell people I'm afraid of falling, and then go do something like bungee jumping or skydiving or something like that. I'll do it with you. I'll skydive with you. You want to do it? You, me, and SpongeBob. Okay, who's got a good question? Who's got a question? About my life? About what? Yeah.
How did you break your leg?
Okay, so, good question. I knew somebody was going to ask this. No, it's not a shark, because I don't want him to feel bad. Okay, so, when I was like in 5th grade, I started complaining about pain in my shin. Then when I was this is going to be a long answer, so be ready, camera guys. Then when I was in middle school, I started having some problems with that leg. Back then, the doctors didn't have the tools they have now. First, they said it was growing pains, then shin splints. Then when I was in high school, I had some big ambitions for my wrestling career, and I was constantly having problems with that leg. Until senior year, my leg cracked because these tumors were growing in the cortex of my bone. And when it cracked, then the blood flowing to heal the broken bone was feeding the tumors, and I got a huge lemon-sized tumor on my leg. And I had about 13 surgeries that I had to have, and then it led to the amputation when I was around 20. So I was waiting for somebody to ask that, because this is the next big point. I wanted you to have a break before you hear. The things that we think in life are the bad stuff, almost always turns out to be the good stuff. So at that time, I thought losing my leg was probably the worst possible thing that could happen, because I had tied all of my self-worth into athletic accomplishments, right? All I wanted to do was make people laugh and slam them on their face, right? And then when I lost my leg, I was laying there thinking, what is my future even going to possibly be, right? Luckily, I was a wrestler growing up, so I had a lot of coaches and people, family members that had the mindset of, let's go send it, let's go figure out what you can do. And I met a kid who was about my same age, and he was almost the same age as you guys, who had almost the same exact thing as me, in his leg and in his jaw. And they found it at a later stage than they found mine. And within about a couple months of me meeting him, he was gone. He didn't make it. And we were almost the same age. We had almost the same circumstances. His was just found later. And so I valued the second chance that I got that he didn't have. So I vowed to get after it. The next part of that is that having one leg opened up opportunities to me that I never would have had. Gave me a perspective that I never would have had, and gives me an audience that never would have listened to me otherwise. So that is one beautiful example of the things in our life that we think are the bad stuff almost always turn out to be the good stuff, especially if we attack it the right way and we adapt to the situation and go full send in the new direction that we have to go. And so right after I got it amputated and I was laying in bed, I got asked to be the assistant wrestling coach. And that's when I really started developing the mindset of everybody has a reason they could use to hold back, but it's the people that go send it. Those are the ones that we listen to and that inspire. And anyone can have that type of story told. So thank you for asking. Good, I was waiting for that. Who's got another one? Anybody? What do you got?
I have a free coach.
Yeah.
So when you introduced yourself to us at the beginning of camp, you had mentioned you were an MMA champion as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that journey from going from the kid in the bed who had just lost his leg to becoming a champion in a sport that some would say would be a little difficult to do without that?
Basically what it was, it boils down narrowly. I'll boil it down to one little condensable thing, and then I'll tell it as a story. I was trying to show the kids that I am doing what I'm asking them to do. Was almost all of my goals, because right when I lost my leg, I was asked to help coach, and I noticed immediately the impact it was having. And the fact that I was willing to try to help them while I was recovering from an amputation and dealing with my own stuff really motivated the kids on that particular team. So then I started getting that mindset of, all right, if I'm motivating them just by showing up here, how much more advantage can these kids have from seeing me push for goals similar to theirs? So I worked pretty hard to get back. I wrestled at Cuesta College and then had a couple other opportunities after that. And I got pretty solid at wrestling with one leg, and I had to relearn a sport that I knew perfectly. In my terms, I knew almost everything about wrestling with two legs, and had to just throw almost all of that out and completely relearn the sport. So there was two aspects of it: one, motivating everyone, and then being an adult, relearning something that I knew and seeing it from the eyes of a student who's brand new. Changed sort of how I focused on things. And then after the moment when they raised money to get me a new leg, they made a video to go out with the fundraiser. And it was almost all the kids who I thought did not get it that were the most helpful for me to get it. It was kids who had bad attendance or poor records wrestling-wise, were some of the worst record-wise wrestlers that I had, or had all kinds of external factors that prevented them from achieving what I thought was important at the time, which was winning wrestling matches. It was all of those kids that said the nicest things and mentioned how much they were encouraged by my efforts. So then I just started picking up goals bigger and bigger. And actually the first beach wrestling tournament, I invited a bunch of MMA guys to it, and they got whooped up even by my JV wrestlers. So then I started helping them, and once I realized that I could work all of those guys who were winning fights, I got my eyes set on, let's see if I can do something that will be extremely visible and will really be something relatable where people can understand that being in a situation that dangerous and having a disadvantage, a perceived disadvantage of one leg going in, that I could probably lift up a lot of people to silence their excuse by going in there. And then the extra little benefit is stroking of ego to once I found out that I just have ungodly power and I can just throw anyone around like they're a 7th grader. So the main thing that motivated me was you guys, specifically you and people just like you, showing you that I'm doing what I'm asking you to do and it works. So you should listen. And your coaches and your counselors are doing what they're asking you to do because it works for them. And if you can get in areas like that and have that mindset and be around people with that mindset, it's just incredible how it builds on itself and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And there's just been more and more opportunities for me because of that mindset. So thank you for a good question.